And we are live. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, one of your hosts.
My name is Mother Banjo, one of your other hosts.
All right.
And I'm Beth Nielsen Chapman, the songwriter.
Yay!
Coming in live from Nashville?
Coming in from Nashville.
Coming in live from Nashville. Looks like Ellen's coming in live from somewhere on Interstate 35, perhaps?
Yep. Well, actually, I think now we're on 61, but yes, just north of Duluth, and happy to be joining you all from the car.
All right.
Excellent. Welcome. And lots of folks coming up early here, excited for this one. We have our friend Connie from Richfield. Hey, Connie, nice to see you. And Joe, once again, listening by the lake here in Minneapolis. Awesome. Good choice. Our good friend Steve Schley, so excited for this one. Me too, Steve. We have Sue tuning in from Ontario. Welcome, Sue. We have Tamara is here while Chris is out boating. Chris and Tamara are two of our Patreon members. And I'm glad that you're representing you two, Tamara. Thanks for being here. If you're new to this show, this is our weekly happy hour, musical happy hour, where we get together, we listen to tunes, we nerd out about songwriting, and we nerd out about recording and all those ins and outs that go into these chapters of artists' lives called albums, and it's so much fun. So it's a conversation. If you're out there, especially if you're new to the show, don't hesitate to jump into the real-time comments with your questions for Beth or comments, because we want to hear from you. And we've got all the way from Norway, from Oslo. Hello.
Wow.
And
that's great.
We have Anne. Happy Friday, drinking a fancy white Italian wine on this fine afternoon. Like I said, it is a happy hour, so we do partake in beverages of any sort. Ellen, you have something going on there?
I just got a Diet Coke happening, keeping us fueled for the road. So
that's good. It's nothing stronger. How about you, Beth?
Well, I have a rather scary cup with sort of cadavers on it, and then
nice.
Inside I have turmeric tea, which is just one of my favorite things. I had to quit drinking like 9 years ago because I was having too much fun. So I have to now interest myself in all these amazing teas. So I've gotten distracted into that.
There is a wide world of tea to get into, and I'm having this. It's the Bajas Guavatron in our fancy new back catalog listening party mugs, which our Patreon members will be getting soon in the mail. So stay tuned for that. And speaking of our Patreon members, another one here is showed up. Joni, hello, from the backyard in the Twin Cities. Diet Coke for you as well. Good choice. Good choice. And
I'm going to have to give a public service announcement on some of the things in Diet Coke because,
that's
I'll wait till the end of the show.
Yeah, that sounds like, yeah. All right. Well, welcome, Beth. We're so excited to have you here, and we're going to be revisiting your 2002 release, Deeper Still. I saw it was actually listed in some places as 2001, in some places as 2002. Do you have the official release date on this one?
It's funny. I think it came out in 2001 because I went through. I recorded it in the summer of 2000, and then the last day of mixing, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, and I had to go through treatments all the way through till like halfway through 2001. So I think it was released in the spring of 2001, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Whatever it says on the record, right? Is that what we call the truth? I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because I've had a very weird career because I release things in the UK separately from the US, and I've had different distributors and different labels in different parts of the world. So it could have come out in 2001 in the UK and then 2002 in the US, just to make it more interesting,
Well, about 20 years ago, this album came out, and we're so excited to dive into this. You mentioned earlier it's one of your faves, and it's definitely one of ours as well. We're so excited. But before we jump into the music, for anybody who doesn't know your music or isn't familiar with your story, could you give a brief bio of just kind of how you got into music? And I know there's a lot in there, and maybe briefly kind of like what led up to this particular album that we're going to listen to.
Well, I had started, my first album was way back in 1980, and Barry Beckett produced it, and I did it at Muscle Shoals Sound, with all those guys that are in the documentary, and it was amazing. And I was very young. I was like 21 or something. It came out on Capitol Records right at the same time as Disco. So I got lovely reviews, and they were like, too bad she didn't put this out 5 years ago, because singer-songwriters, bye-bye, you know.
Right.
So and Donna
It's
Summer
all
was all
disco
over.
now.
Disco Duck did me in. So I got very upset, and I went home, and I had just gotten married, and I went back to Alabama, and I just said, I'm just going to start my family. They had their chance. They didn't want me, so I'm done. And then I didn't write for like 3 years. And during that time, I was playing in bars and doing songs from all different eras, and really learning more about songwriting kind of by osmosis of that. And then I finally started writing again after my husband tried so hard to get me back to work. I was like, I'm not doing it, you know. And all my creative energy went into taking care of my kid. And anyway, so I saw Coal Miner's Daughter.
Mm.
And I saw this scene where Loretta Lynn has these children climbing all over her, and she's writing a classic song, planting potatoes with 3 kids. And I thought, I'm being a baby about this thing. I need to get back to work. So I started trying to write a hit for Loretta Lynn.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I tried for like, and the first attempts were very, very scary. And, but I eventually wrote, you know, a couple of things, and I moved. Anyway, long story short, we moved to Nashville in 1985, and then it was another 5 years. So I didn't put out my second album until 1990, and that was on Warner Brothers. And in the interim, the song that I had come to Nashville with, that everybody was fighting over, that was a Loretta Lynn hit, she didn't cut it, but Lori Morgan ended up cutting it, and it went to #1. And so it took about 5 years, but my career in Nashville started to take off, and I did 10 years on Warner Brothers Records. And the last record I did for Warner Brothers was called Sand and Water. And my husband, Ernest, died of cancer in 1994. And that whole album was about coming through grief and loss. And it was a pretty big record for me, and still is one of my favorites. And Rodney Crowell produced it. And I ended up asking Warner Brothers to let me go, because I just felt like I was a little ahead of the bell curve of this, but I just felt like I could do more what I wanted to do on my own label, and I was looking into doing all that. So the first album I did was Deeper Still. And I had these songs that all came together, and I remember thinking, there's this way these songs sort of holding together, and I wasn't sure what I was writing about. Some of them, I just wrote them. I write the songs from the vowels out, sort of, and from the melody. I'll get the melody, and then I'll get the vowel that goes on that note. And then later on, when the song is finished, you can go back to my work tape, and the vowels are already lined up. So it's
nice.
Do. Anyway.
Yeah. Wow. And so then the words just come after, and you're like, what's a good word with that vowel? Is that
I'll end up with a line, and then I'll go, oh, that's what the song's about. And then I'll go back, and I'll discover that the vowels were there before even the thought of what it was about. So I really believe that songs are already perfectly written, and we download them in layers. At least I do. So this whole record, I was on the last day of mixing it, and I knew it felt to me like a very powerful record. I worked with Gary Pachoza. He engineered the record, and I kind of produced it myself. And I mean, I had John Prine singing on it, and John Hyatt playing on it. And Andy Bay, who's just an amazing jazz artist, came and sang on it. Anyway, I was very proud of it. And the last day of mixing, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And it was just like, what? So that shocked me. And I got through it, and I'm completely healed. But at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I had to kind of put it on the shelf, and went through about 8 months of treatments, and then was able to put the record out. And when I put the record out, I realized almost every song on this record is about what I went through going through breast cancer. It was just like unbelievable. And there's a couple of songs we'll talk about today where there's more of a, specific way the song was written for me to sing to me, but I didn't know that when I was writing it. So anyway, and then from there, I've continued putting out records. I've put out 15 records as an artist, and I've continued to have some success writing songs for other artists, and having hit songs helped me put my son through college that other people sang. And I just can't complain. I feel like I've been really, really lucky, and I've worked my ass off, but I've also I've had some wonderful good breaks, and I've worked with some incredible other songwriters and co-writers, and it's always just been just a super passion to do. I can't imagine ever retiring.
Well, that's
thank
great.
goodness for that.
That was as quick as I could get through my bio, but there's a lot more, but I can't. I know we'll run out of time.
There is a lot more. And folks, if you're interested, we're going to put this up more than once, but you can head on over to Beth's website. We have that on the screen right now.
Yeah.
Just Beth
There's a
Nielsen
big
Chapman.
long bio there. You can just go all into the stuff.
Yeah, and it's like I wanted to tell. I was telling some friends of mine about, you got to tune in because this famous person recorded her song, and this famous. I mean, there was just too many famous people. It's a real testament to the power of these songs and good storytelling. And I know that's a big part of why people show up here every week. And so I want to dive right into it. Let's get started with the first track that you sent us to play today, "World of Hurt." Is there anything you want to say before we listen, or would you rather say something after? Or?
I would just say I just wrote this with one of my dear friends who's a fantastic artist and songwriter, Bill Lloyd. And I can tell you about it after we listen then, beyond that.
All right. Well, let's get this listening party started. This is Beth Nielsen Chapman, "World of Hurt," here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Day one, God smiled, gave us all the wisdom of a newborn child. But by the time we take our first step, we've already begun to forget what the heart knows, the heart sees. We're just as much the forest as we are the trees. Every little seed trying to find where the light comes from. It's a world of hurt, nothing works. It's a lonely little planet made of dust and dirt. Who'd ever think that in the midst of all this, something as beautiful as love exists? Baby, I hold you, and you hold me, and heaven doesn't seem like such a mystery. In a world of hurt, you make me feel so good. Day one of our love, two heartbroken people scared to trust too much. But here comes that feeling again, that every lover swears will never end. We thought we'd been there, done that, but when we kissed, we knew we'd never been here, we'd never done this. All the walls come tumbling down when you love someone, and it's a world of hurt, nothing works. It's a lonely little planet made of dust and dirt. Who'd ever think that in the midst of all this, something as beautiful as love exists? Baby, I hold you, and you hold me. Heaven doesn't seem like such a mystery. Darling, in a world of hurt, you make me feel so good. You make me feel good. And when I hold you, you hold me. Heaven doesn't seem like such a mystery. Darling, in a world of hurt, you make me feel so good. Yeah, in a world of hurt, you make me feel so good. You make me feel so good.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Beth Nielsen Chapman here on the back catalog listening party with World of Hurt from her 2002 album Deeper Still, which we are revisiting today on the show with Beth Nielsen Chapman joining us live from Nashville. And that song definitely has, so funny that you mentioned your first album having all the Muscle Shoals folks on it, because I can
Yeah.
feel that soul.
Oh, the
vibe
funk.
on that
Yeah.
song.
The funk is happening. And it was just so much fun to hear that again and put a big smile on my face, because that's John Hyatt playing that blistering guitar.
Oh,
and
that was
and
sweet.
he was also doing a lot of those background vocals, as well as this artist that I'm such a huge fan of named Andy Bay, spelled Bey. So Andy came down to Nashville, and I mean, he and his sisters in 1956 made an album with Chet Atkins.
Oh, wow.
And he's an amazing jazz artist based in New York. And my manager at the time, Herb Jordan, who's still a good friend of mine, had introduced us. And I just like Andy Bay, like I want Andy Bay to come to Nashville. So he came and played at the Bluebird with Tommy Sims, who's also singing background vocals on this record. And we went to lunch with Chet earlier in the day, and it was so amazing watching Andy Bay and Chet have this conversation about back in the day when his wife would have to bring in sandwiches because Black people and white people couldn't go to a restaurant together. And it was just amazing. So all that flooded in when I heard that song again. But I love what the song is about. You know, it's acknowledging that there's a lot of crap that we're dealing with, but there's also this sort of resilience in the midst of the chaos and the depth of pain and suffering that we're in, which is my favorite juxtaposition to write about in any song. You know, it's just such a fun song, but also has a depth to it, which I really love.
It's one of those special things about songs where they can literally work on two different levels simultaneously, you know, like sad lyrics, happy music, or vice versa. And it's something that's really powerful.
Yeah.
And people were loving that. We got a big yay out there.
Kelly.
Yeah, it sounded great. And you were mentioning the different background vocalists. I heard a nice big deep voice, you know, a big.
Oh, yeah.
Who's that doing the
That's
baritone?
Andy Bay. That's Andy Bay. And go look him up. He has several albums that are absolute classics. They're Ballads, Blues, and Bay was the first one that I heard, and it's just him and a piano, and it's just unbelievable. And I ended up getting to write a song with him, and I'm just marvel at his talent. You know, he's just incredible. And I worked with Gary Pachoza, who helped me, you know, organize all the recording, did all the recording, and then I'm just blanking on his name now. God, I hate it. I'm at that age where the folder for names has been deleted from my hard drive. So I'll remember. You know, I should have my liner notes up here so I can see them. Who mixed the record?
Let's see if I can find it here on ours.
It's just right on the tip of my tongue, and I know him so well, and it's just killing
Danny
me.
Duncan, perhaps?
No.
That was another engineer.
No, he kind of mixed the whole record. Wait,
Okay.
Deeper Still liner notes. Here we go. This will tell me. So sad. Chuck Ainlay.
Nice.
He
another
is the
big
master.
name.
Yeah,
You've got this like the heavy hitters on both the music and the production. It sounds so good. And where was this one recorded?
We recorded it in Nashville. Trying to remember the name of the studio. It was like the Dog House or something. It was a rather small studio, but you know, Gary Pachoza had done all those great Alison Krauss records, and I was like, whatever she was having, I want to have that. You know, and I thought if I could just have the vocal thing, and I got a couple of wonderful vocal equipment. You know, there was an Avalon or something like that. I got upgraded in terms of what I was recording in my own studio, but it's also the masterfulness of him as an engineer and a producer. He had great skills in that department. So
He's got a way of really bringing out like kind of acoustic sounds, even in electric instrument. I don't know how else to describe it, but I always noticed that with the Alison Krauss records too, where it's like somehow the drums don't sound like drums. It just sounds like a texture that fits with all the acoustic stuff. And definitely this time, though, we had a nice strong backbeat. And I also was hearing kind of flavors of gospel music. Is that something that influenced you?
I mean, I think I've been influenced by all the, you know, like Aretha Franklin, all those great gospel records that she did. And I just love roots music. And I'm a song hound, you know, so to me, you could take this song and you could put synthesizers on it and it would be hard to kill it. But, you know, production wise, I love the sound of real instruments for the most part. You know, I do kind of lean towards that. So,
And,
yeah.
and were you helping to put that together? You know, like as like a producer for these records? Do you say, all right, I'm hearing a guitar here, and I'm a piano here, and a drums here? Or how did that happen for you?
I mean, I don't remember exactly specifically on that song. I know there were like 3 or 4 things that we cut with a couple of musicians, and you know, the idea was to get the tracks cut. But I always play and sing everything. You know, like I play and sing at the same time. And we recorded it at the Groove Room and the Doghouse. That's where it was. So we had like Kenny Malone on percussion. I mean, you know,
good.
I mean,
Wow.
Dave Pomeroy on bass, Jonathan Yutkin on mandolin, Mike Noble on guitar. And these were all guys that I'd done, you know, worked on with demos. You know, and Bonnie Raitt came and sang a couple of background vocals because we had just become friends not too long before that. It was so magical to get to do that, you know. Wonderful musician from New York, John Ragusa, who played flute on Deeper Still. You know, just there are musicians everywhere in Nashville. It's actually quite stressful when you start to make a new record because you're like worried about how many people you're going to run into. And they're like, I heard you're making a record, you know. Like,
come on in. Well, you mentioned this was your first, you know, independent one.
It was my first independent one. Yeah, it was the first time that I had set out to put out a commercial record. And I had done another record that came out a couple of years later, but I'd already been working on it, which is all in Latin, which is like, oh, don't ask. But it actually got on NPR and sold like 140,000 copies, which funded my next several records because, you know, I always sort of said to myself, I'm going to keep making records till I run out of money. But I felt so, I don't know, I had a wonderful time at Warner Brothers and there were great people there. But I just felt this readiness to go out and just strike out on my own. And it was way before I knew what I was doing. So I got lucky, just had a couple of things that worked out well.
I was going to say, it sounds like you knew what you were doing because you pulled together quite a cast of people, and these songs, as is noted in the comments, the complexity of the songs is evident, but it's also wonderful because it's packaged in such an accessible and impactful way, which I think is what makes your music so great. And we want to make sure we hear more of those songs because I can't believe how fast
you got to shut me up. You just have to go like that, you know.
So we want to get to more songs. So the next one you picked to feature is All Comes Down to Love. Is there anything you want to say about this track before we take a listen?
I've been playing this in my shows just last 2 weeks ago. It may be one of my favorite songs of all time. I wrote it with Annie Roboff, and we've written a bunch of stuff together. She's my best friend. We finish each other's sentences when we write. This thing came together so fast. And it was written about the time my son went off to college, and it's about letting go. And it's one of my favorite songs. There's crazy chord changes in this one.
Listen up, folks.
All right. This is Beth Nielsen Chapman. All Comes Down to Love here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Straight shot of misery. Some days make a mess of me. I touch the ground when I can find my feet. You know it all comes down to love. I tell myself I can do it all. I juggle everything, I drop the ball. Sometimes it feels my life's impossible, but then it all comes down to love. I'd love to take you on a time machine. Fill those cracks, things fall between. And we could find more days to fly away from the hurricane, but in the ebb and flow, it all comes down to love. clock chimes, the baby cries. I turn around and he's 6 feet high. And as I let him go and watch him fly, I know it all comes down to light the candles and I'll cut the cake. I make a wish for every heart that breaks. Sweet forgiveness, never made a mistake. You know it all comes down to love, and I can love you to my heart's content. I know you must be heaven sent. The way you sweep me up in your arms in the middle of an argument, and you let me know it all comes down to love. Oh, it all comes down to love. Take it down to the guts and the rubble, digging up the deeper stuff. You gotta trust when you're running into trouble that it all comes down to yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know it all comes down to love. All the party ways that make the sky look yeah, yeah, yeah. All the sun that seems to shine from deep inside. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know it all comes down to love. Like the way the moon can roll the waves of yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the kiss that wonders if you ever kiss yeah, yeah, yeah. You know it all comes down to love.
Oh yeah. Beth Nielsen Chapman with All Comes Down to Love. Yes.
That one gets the applause track. That was fantastic.
And who wasn't singing along with that?
I
mean,
know.
come on.
Well,
You're allowed.
I'm doing all the background vocals, but I have so much fun doing it live because I have my band, you know, my UK band or my US band doing the background vocals, and it's just so much fun to sing that song and going into those different sections and going, you thought we were done, but we're going up here now, you know. And Annie and I, when we were writing it, you know, she pulls me higher as a songwriter every time. But it's like we have these, you know, this great little verse, and then it goes up to this chorus, and it goes down to the verse, and back up to the chorus. And I'm thinking we're done. She's like, no, we're gonna go break down to the guts. So, you know, it's just so delightful to love a song so much that I have known for so many years. I sound very boastful, but I'm American. You know,
No,
this is
and
what
you're
we
not
do.
alone here. We Kelly says one of my all-time faves. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
Kelly sings in my band, so she's learned it. She's gone through the learning curve. But one of the people that I worked with in the studio that made this record so great is Carmen Rizzo, who is a world famous producer now. He travels all over the world. We've been recently reconnecting, and we keep missing each other. I was just in London, and then he left the day I got there, and he's just was so delightful to work with and brought in these great musicians, and it was just total joy.
You could hear it in that one.
Yeah.
I also was really impressed with the vocals, not just even more so now knowing that you did all the harmony vocals, but the, you know, it keeps getting higher. And
Yeah.
what I find impressive is that, you know, you're able to use kind of some of that lower voice in that higher notes and
Yeah.
without much vibrato, that you're able to hold those notes so strongly. And it's, that's a challenging thing to sing. And especially, I know you've been singing it, you still continue to sing it live. Are
Yeah.
there songs that you feel like you vocally are challenging for you to sing now? Obviously you still do that one, but
I never, you know, I don't sing anymore. I stopped singing around 1994 because I had learned a technique from Gerald Arthur, who taught me this technique, and I've kind of been teaching it over the years. It's basically not singing, it's speaking on pitch and rhythm and lengthening my speaking voice, which allows me all the ways that I could, you know, like if you think about, like people will come into my workshop and they'll say, well, I have to be in falsetto by the time I get to this note right here. And they have all these rules in their head about what they can sing. And I have no rules. I have no boundaries. I have no split in my voice. It's just like I could bellow across a football field or I could whisper to a baby, and it's all my voice. So I don't have I don't make a difference in what I do when I talk and when I sing.
Wow.
So where does your kind of your vocal chops come from? Is that something you've always done since you were a child, or did you study?
I have a good speaking voice. I mean, it's like when people tell me they can't sing, but they're talking to me, I'm like, I beg to differ, because if you're talking, you can sing. So it's a very long conversation that we wouldn't have time for, but it's called vocal presence. I basically love teaching it because in about 10 minutes, I can usually shift your brain to changing your relationship with what you're doing when you're making a melody come through your mouth.
Well, speaking of teaching, you do a lot of that, and we were chatting a little bit before the show started about a big workshop you have coming up with Rodney Crowell. And do you want to just maybe talk a little bit about your educational stuff? I'm going to put your website on the screen here, and I'll put it in the comments too. But I think people would benefit a lot from following your educational stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love teaching. I mean, one of the things that I feel like is my purpose as a teacher in terms of teaching songwriting is to help people remember and develop a very strong relationship to not knowing what they're doing and really work that open to where it's very comfortable, and you're going to show up and you're not going to have a clue where, because that's where all the good stuff happens accidentally. And then you can make it make more sense later. But if you're worrying about making sense or worried about like, what's this about too early in the process, I think you miss the opportunity to blurt things out that end up like, to me, there's some force that's helping us work through art that's bigger than we are. And it's coming through us like a channel. And I believe really deeply that if we don't try to nail it down too quickly, then it's very powerful what you can end up working with as the lump of clay that comes through, like, what's this going to be when it grows up kind of thing. So that's just a little snippet. But I love also celebrating academia and all the things you can knowledgeably know about technique. Like when I critique a song, I'm a badass. But when I tell the person, okay, so now we've decided the second verse is not as good as the rest of it. So you're going to take that second verse out and put it over here on the altar of things that aren't going anywhere. So it's right there. And you can put it right back in your song. So now you have a nice hole. And when you have a hole, this energy increases to fill it with new stuff. But you have to actually have a hole. You got to move that other shit out of the way to do it. So, I have these little tricks that I've developed that makes it fun and entertaining. But it is hard work, and you have to be willing to go back in and rewrite sometimes hundreds of times. I mean, the record I have for a song that I wrote by myself is a song called Epitaph for Love. And it took me literally 18 years from when I started writing it to when it was finished.
Wow.
I mean, I did other things during that time.
Yeah. And what was the shortest song you ever wrote? Have you done one where it just kind of came out?
The first song I ever had a hit on, which I wrote with Don Schlitz, who's scary fast. And we wrote it in 20 minutes, Strong Enough to Bend. It was a big hit for Tanya Tucker. And my head was spinning. We wrote that and another song, and then we went to lunch, and I was just like, what just happened? What? I didn't even know if it was any good. I hadn't had time to mull it over or anything. So that was an amazing revelation that I could write something that would feed my family for a year in 20 minutes. I'm like, well, I'm working too hard on this other stuff. They're all different. The song is going to tell you when it's done.
It's interesting you say that, because Joni had an interesting question. When you write, do you know ahead or as you go if it's going to be for a song for you to sing or for another artist? Or is it a mixture that has changed over the years? Like when you wrote that song that ended up being a hit for Tanya Tucker, did you know it was going to be for someone else? Or
it was 2 years, almost 2 years from when we wrote it that Tanya cut it.
Okay.
And my theory on songs is every song, I'm just following the song. And I'm trying to make it be what it's meant to be and the best it can be. And then I might cut it or I might not, or somebody else can. Everybody can have all my songs. I don't hold them back. They're all available. And, when I've been asked to write a song for an artist, like I was asked to write for Willie Nelson, after Strong Enough to Bend, because he liked that song and he wasn't writing for a period of time because he was going through a lot of stuff. And he had a deadline, and so he reached out to some songwriters, and I was one of them. And it was because of Strong Enough to Bend. And he said, "Get her to write me something." And I was like, "Okay," And it took me 3 months, and it about killed me. But I wrote this song called "Nothing I Can Do About It Now," and it ended up going to #1 for Willie. I mean, the whole thing was just like a miracle to me, but hard work because I had to feel like it was a perfect song, and it was, took me a tremendous amount of hours to write it. But it really was character building. In the end, I was like, I did that. At least I did that,
Well,
Wow.
especially when it's going to be someone else singing it. So you're kind of probably, even if you don't intend to, you're writing for their voice, and it's easy to overthink it probably. Yeah.
Well, I just picked up my guitar, went on the road again. I got my little Willie Nelson vibe going, put a little bandana around my neck. Yeah. Well, and I learned a big lesson from that song, because when I was invited to play guitar on it, and his band kicked it off after hearing my demo, which was very Willie Nelson-esque, the drummer kicked it off, and he went from the train beat, which is one, like that, to a shuffle, which was totally totally different beat. And I didn't think it would ever see the light of day. And when it came out as a single, I was just like, I'm going to end his career because it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right. And then when it got in the top 10, I thought, well, it doesn't sound that bad. And then when it got to #1, I'm like, yeah, I wrote that just like that.
Well, they injected a little bit of their own personality into it.
They did. Right. Willie's going to make it his own. He does. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we want to dig more into more of your own songs right here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. But I do want to remind everyone that you can get this album and all her other albums that are available on her website. And I should mention that, again, today I'm not listening on my fancy headphones. I'm on my earbuds, but it still sounds pretty sweet. And I can't wait to listen to the high-res version later. And you can get a CD copy or download the digital files, but you're going to want to hear it because there is so much going on in the production and in the vocals to hear these songs. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah,
highly recommended.
And for those of you who are watching, you're probably also kind of music nerds like we are. And there's also a lot to gain from reading through these liner notes. And this is an interesting alternate cover, right? Is that right?
That's the UK cover, the UK and Europe cover.
This is the UK, but both of them have we have lyrics and we have production credits and some amazing artwork, which I want to ask about later, and so much to, and not to mention that, one purchase of a CD is probably like 1,000, 10,000 streams. I don't know how many streams that would be, but it goes a long way to just show your support for the artist and let them know that you care about what they're doing. And it sounds like Beth has some copies that she could sign for you and send directly to you.
They're dwindling fast, but there are a few.
So get them now while they're hot.
Get them while you can. We have her website in the comments, so click on that after the show and pick yourself up a copy.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Thank you.
And we're going to hear another track from this right now. And this is another track that you picked. And for those of you who are new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, we pick the artists and we invite artists to join the show, but then it's their album pick and they pick all the songs. So this is one of my favorite things about the show is, which albums the artists pick and then which songs they want to dive into. And this next song is Every December Sky. Is there anything you want to say about this before we take a listen?
Yeah, this song is really special to me because when I was writing it, I was thinking, who am I talking to and what am I writing it about? And I didn't know that I would be sitting on my couch later that year. Instead of putting the record out, I'd be going through chemotherapy and all my hair fell out at the same time that all the leaves came off the trees that October. And I was sitting on my couch feeling pretty despondent because I was worried about getting through that. And I didn't want my son to have no parents. And it was amazing. I suddenly started hearing that song in my head and I listened to my own self sing it to me. I sang it to myself. And it's really about finding a way to be hopeful in the deepest, darkest, coldest part of winter. And, when spring came, all the leaves came back on the trees and my hair was growing back in, which is my hair is really short on that album cover because of that. But so it came full circle for me. And on the back end, I'll tell you a funny story about John Prine singing the background vocal on this song.
All right, well, let's give it a listen. This is Beth Nielsen Chapman, Every December Sky, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
must lose its faith in leaves and dream of the spring inside the trees. How heavy the empty heart, how light the heart that's full. Sometimes I have to trust what I can't know. Sometimes I have to trust what I can't know.
We'll walk into paradise. The angels lend us shoes. Cause all that we own will come to lose.
And heaven is not so far outside this womb of words. With every rose that blooms, my soul is assured. It's just like a song I've known, yet still unheard. And every leaf on fire lets go, melting in the arms of earth and snow. And if I could hold you now, you'd enter like a sigh. You'd be the wind that blows the answer to why. You'd be the spring-filled trees of every December sky.
Beth Nielsen Chapman here on the back catalog listening party. Yeah, no dry eyes here. Every
beautiful.
December Sky from her 2002 album Deeper Still, which we are digging deep into today. And
We're
you
deep,
mentioned,
digging deep.
if you hadn't mentioned before we started the song that John Prine was on it, I mean, his voice is pretty unmistakable.
I know,
on
it makes
that
me
when it
so
comes
happy to hear that. So John, I didn't know John well. Of course, I was a massive fan, and I knew his wife Fiona. And I mean, I'd met them a few times, but he heard that I mean, he did this before I found out I had breast cancer, because I was the last day of mixing when I was diagnosed. But that following Valentine's Day, he heard through the grapevine that I was going through it, and he left me this beautiful message on my answering machine. He goes, "Hey, Beth, this is John Prine. I heard you have cancer. Well, that sucks. Well, anyway, happy Valentine's Day." And that made my day. Anyway, but I asked him, I've sent him the song, and I said, I'd love for you to sing on this. And so he let me know before he got there that he didn't really sing harmonies, that he would just sing with me on the melody. And I thought, ooh, that's not what I was thinking would be the best. So I tricked him. So I put a vocal down of the harmony part with me singing it. And when he arrived at the studio, I said, "Now, John, I've changed the melody." So I took out the melody and I just put me singing the harmony part, like what he sang. And he was like, he stood there and he goes, "Well, I never like to tell somebody how to write songs, but I got to tell you, that's not as good as what you had originally." And I'm like, "I know, but just bear with me. We're just going to put that down." And I just like, get him in there and, put it down. And he was very confused by this. He was like, I said, "I tell you what, John, if you put this melody down then I'd like you to put the other melody down. So we'll have both. And he goes, well, I think you should have me do the other one first. I'm like, no, let's just do this one first since we just played it. I mean, I barely got him to do it. Then he did that. And then I got him back in the control room. And I said, well, before you go in there and sing the other melody, I want to show you how I just tricked you. I hope you're not going to be mad. And if you don't like it, we can totally, revisit what we're going to do. So I put my vocal back in singing the lead, and then I put his vocal singing that harmony part. And he got real proud of himself. He goes, well, I'll be damned. He was so like, I just sang a harmony part. I'm like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. You were tricked, but you did. And so I'd run into somebody like a week later. They go, hey, John Prine was telling me he sang harmony on your record. I'm like, yeah, I'm so happy that I got that, And I mean, he was so dear. He was just such a great human being on so many levels. So I love that man.
Amazing story.
There was no way to tell that in less than a long-winded way. So I will stop talking now.
Sue says, that John Prine story is so funny. You got him good.
I did. And he thought it was great. He didn't mind at all. He was like, I'm gonna hire myself as a harmony singer now.
Well, people loving that. Like I said, Sue saying just, so heartfelt, always been one of my faves. And David arrived. Welcome, David. I said, got here just in time for the intro and the song, and always grateful for the archive. That's a great reminder that if you did miss anything earlier in the show, you can always go to backcataloglisteningparty.com/174. And not only can you rewatch it, it's also on YouTube. But if you go to the back catalog site, you'll get the liner notes links that everything that we've been talking about, the engineers and some of the folks involved with this, if mentioned in the show, we try to get them their name and their links to their more information about them on our website. So backcataloglisteningparty.com/174.
And we do want to take this moment to thank our Patreon supporters. These are the folks that have kept the show going and are some of our regulars to the show. And these are the folks that, again, keep the show going from week to week. And if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/backcataloglisteningparty. And we want to thank Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Prowler, Severin, Lynn, Mary, Many Tracks, Nikki, Joni, David, Sarah C, CJ, and Wiley, and maybe you if you want to join us. And we want to thank all of them for our support. As Tony mentioned, we're going to be sending some Founders pint glasses to you soon. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you so much. This is something that is very special when you share music with other people, even online. It's amazing how it changes how you listen, how you hear things. And every week when I leave this hour, I'm just my heart is full and I'm ready. I'm ready to take on the next week. But it really is the power of music, but not just the music. It's the people. It's the community. It's the way that we come together to celebrate this. And Beth, this is so amazing to hear all these stories. We had a comment here that is just saying that they love, where was that here? No, Joni said, no, I love the backstory and your experiences. I really feel like that does inform how you listen to the songs. When I hear the story, whether before or after the song, it does change my perception. So I really appreciate you sharing all of these great stories with us today.
Oh, I love telling them. I'm just trying to make the stories shorter than the songs, but that's always challenging.
Let's see here. We got another question here, and this is when you work on the lyrics, do you work for hours or make a note of lines that you come up with? For instance, how heavy the empty heart, how light the heart that's full. Did you have anything you want to say about
That's
that?
an interesting line. It's one of my favorite lines. I wrote a little poem when I was in the 4th grade. Oh, it's actually a line that I wrote in the 4th grade. It said, "The heart weighs more when it's empty."
Wow.
And I don't know how I wrote that when I was like 10 years old, but I did. And I carried that around. And the concept of that, the emptiness is, how could emptiness be so heavy? And I always thought the paradox of that was fascinating. And I was so happy to get that into that was like the first line of the song, that I wrote, how heavy the empty heart, how light the heart that's full. I was like, oh, I'm going to get it in there. It's just things like that fascinate me in life, the way that things are a paradox. I have another song called Years. It says, years, they take so long and they go so fast. That's both is true. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that line from when you were in fourth grade wound up on the track.
Yeah, I like to say I started the song in the fourth grade, but that's a far-fetched. But in terms of the length of time it takes to write, sometimes it's very fast, and sometimes it's hours and hours and hours, and nothing, and then I'll get up to go get something out of the kitchen, and the whole second verse will fall into my head. So I believe in showing up and doing the time. And I tell my students, if you show up for an hour and you concentrate on trying to work on your lyric or whatever on your song, and nothing happens, instead of beating yourself up about that or saying, oh, I suck, I didn't write anything, go get yourself a chocolate sundae, because you just lifted 3,000 pounds in the gym of creativity, and it will come back and pay later. So
it really is
never
a muscle.
wasted time. It's never wasted.
That's great advice. And speaking of your advice, we had a nice comment here from Sharon saying, learned so much from Beth online during COVID. Thank you for all this today.
Sharon.
And yeah, it's a muscle. It needs to be flexed. Yeah. And when it's flexed, sometimes it's 20 minutes, sometimes it's 18 years, right?
It's so true.
But it's like it's not going to happen unless you do it all the time. And I so appreciate that. And once again, I'll mention that Beth does a lot of education online and in person. And you can find more at BethNielsenChapman.com about workshops, songwriting workshops, things. I know I'll be checking out what you have coming up, because just in this short time, I feel like I've learned so much. I'm sure, Ellen, you would agree.
No
That's
doubt.
Great.
Yeah.
Go forth and write.
I love that. This hour is going by really, really fast. So it looks like, but we do have time to get in at least one more song. And the next one that we have lined up anyways is the title track, Deeper Still. Is there anything that you'd like to say about this one?
Yeah, this song is really special to me too. I wrote this with David Wilcox. I'm sure you guys know David. If you haven't had him on your show, you've got to have him on this show. He would be so much fun. He's one of my dear friends, one of the great songwriters I've ever gotten to work with. And we were together at a writer's colony kind of thing, and he heard me playing this melody, and I was so precious about the melody. I'd had the melody for like a year, and I hadn't been able to hardly put any words to it. I think I had the first couple of lines, and then I was just like, I can't write this. And he said, let's write it. And I was like, I don't know. You may not speak to me if I try to write it with you, but we worked on it for 2 days, and I just loved working with him. And he was so hilarious, and he has this very scary laugh, like, but the song is so deep. It's about deep forgiveness, and it helped me so many times in my life when I've had to go there, and see, do I really forgive this person, or how can I get them to forgive me? And it's about the walk. And one of the most brilliant things which he came up with was this idea that you can invest. The more you put in, the more you get back out. And it's just beautiful the way we ended up being able to write this song.
Awesome. Well, before we dive in, since it is the title track and we have this great cover art here, I just want to ask real quickly about that and about it kind of with this title. Is there anything you want to say about the artwork? Or
Well, it was done by a friend of my brother's name. His name is Severe. I'm trying to remember his first name. Severe is his last name. He's a fantastic artist. And I had the idea of wanting to be walking down a path and having the seasons change as you go. That's all I knew. And then he came up with this beautiful painting, and then I was photographed, and then I sort of put myself into the painting. I kind of love to play around with Photoshop. So that part of me is not a painting, but I kind of got it to look like a painting. So it was just, I don't know. And then we did this sort of taped thing around the edges to make it sort of raw, because that's the way the painting came to me. It was just kind of, he did this beautiful painting. So that was that. Yeah.
Well, I love it with the title Deeper Still.
Yeah.
It really is evocative, and we're gonna listen to it right here, right now. Beth Nielsen Chapman, Deeper Still, on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
In the I came to where the emptiness cracked open. All my fears came crashing through and met the fire of my sorrow. But I found my strength in forgiving you. I never even dreamed how far my heart could go to give my life beyond each death from a deeper well of trust, to know that when there's nothing left, you will always have what you gave to love. In this life, the love you give comes back around to be your treasure. What you lose will be what you win. A well that echoes down too deep to measure. A silver coin rings down that well. You can never spend too much. A diamond echoes deeper still, and you'll always have what you gave to love. And you'll always have, you will always have what you gave to love.
Beth Nielsen Chapman, Deeper Still, the title track from her 2002 record, which we have been revisiting today with Beth joining us live from Nashville. What a
Now I'm gonna have to go cry.
I know, we're all gonna, this has like been therapy. So
Yeah,
great.
That
it
was
really
Vince
is.
Vince Gill singing background vocals, and I'd forgotten about that. And then the wonderful John Ragusa on the flute and the penny whistle. Just I'm so happy to hear that again. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to my own back catalog now. I'm like, that was pretty good.
It sure is. That's what we're here for. We're here for you, Beth.
Thank
we
you.
wanna,
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a great show.
Well,
Yes,
thank you
really
so
cool. Thank
much.
you for-
It, like I said earlier, here I am. I'm ready now. I feel like music has this. It's so powerful, and it can really change so much internally. And a lot of people agree here. Connie says wonderful show, and super duper show, says Steve, and Sharon says, Beth, you're an inspiration and a gift to us all. Stay safe, and Sue, Vince Gill's amazing too. You got all the greats on one album. It's really about this gathering, I think, too, that makes it so special, you know. And so I can't thank you enough for spending this hour with us revisiting these tunes.
Yeah,
well, in a
such
world,
treat.
in a world where there's these quick things going by so fast, this is such a wonderful reminder how important it is to go deep. You know, it really is. It's been an inspiration for me to be part of this. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And if you liked it, like it on YouTube and direct all the bots to Beth Nielsen Chapman. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel because we do this every week. Unfortunately, not with Beth Nielsen Chapman every week, but we do invite different wonderful guest artists every week to revisit old records. And so you can find out what's happening next if you subscribe. But mainly just thank you for being here, and especially to Beth. And thank you all for your patience as I, am driving to my weekend destination. But it's been such a treat, and I'm so glad I managed to make it work technically to be here, because this was so special for me. Really beautiful.
Me too. This was a very special hour. Beth, thanks again, and thanks again to everyone who was here. Head on over to Beth's website. The link's in the comments. Go get the high-res version. You won't regret it. There's limited quantities left, so it'll be a collector's item, and you want to get your hands on it. Sounds so good. And until next week, keep enjoying all the music, and see you here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.